Good morning and welcome to the Beef and Barnzy Show. Had some technical difficulties earlier, so we'll try and give this another go and see if we can get this right. But as of right now, waiting for our guest to get back in here and make a go of this. So welcome here, and I'm going to go and share things out and see if we can keep this thing running. So, as wait for my co-host to get in here. Welcome again. I appreciate you joining us. We had a few technical difficulties. Obviously, this is working much better. We got a lot more people in here already. So, uh, very good. I will get this shared out. there's probably there's probably no doubt. And take two. Yep. So. And the good and the great. I am good now. I used to be a little better, so we're working on it. We'll get this thing shared out to all the appropriate people and moving along. And there we go. All right. Thanks for joining in with us. We're waiting for my co-host and guest to join in, and as soon as we get that set, we'll be good to go. Uh, but interesting weekend for those of you who didn't get a chance to join us a little bit ago. Yes, I did win an old guy regional, and yes, it was a lot of fun to win. So after a couple of close calls where Tom has smashed my face in, it was a good time to finish off the deal. Got down to just a couple pins there at the end, and was able to sneak out a victory. So along with some other things that happened over the weekend last week, we'll have a guest on soon. Had a revolutionary camp. We'll be bringing that along. Stu, as you may or may not know, is on his Lucas Wiseman adventure, to where he has gone from Disney World to Aruba. He will probably going to Phuket and later England and who knows where else he may go on his next vacation. So we will try and follow the Where's Waldo of the Beef and Barnzy Show and where Stu was. I do not know what happened earlier on our cast, but it got off to a very slow start, and then I guess it just dropped. So I am not sure what happened there or what or why. That's why Stu is the brains of the operation. He is in charge of tech, and I am not. So, yes, thank you. Enjoying the bridesmaid positions. Not so much. The only thing, it's a lot better than finishing last, but it certainly stings a little bit more. So, not my favorite place to be at. But appreciate you guys for joining me here shortly. I guess Dave's having a little difficulty getting kicked back on here. So in the meantime, we will send a message over to him. We'll see how that goes. But who forgot to pay the bills? It's not me. I'm actually pretty good at paying, I think, most of the time. So, well, with that, while we're waiting, good question there. I use an Axiom, a Zen Master, and a X1. 44 feet, Billy Hardwick. With all due apologies to Plano Super Bowl, Waxahachie Hilltop Lanes might be the highest scoring center in the world. And even though this wasn't the house shot, it had plenty of memory there for a while, so it was pretty good. With that, though, today, because Stu is on his worldwide adventure, we've brought in some real talent into this show. And so with that, I'd like to introduce a man who has been a radio announcer for the Miami Hurricanes baseball and basketball teams. He did play-by-play for the Heat. He was a co-host of NFL Sunday on Westwood One. He's done play-by-play for ABC and ESPN on college football and basketball in the SEC and other conferences. But by far, I believe his biggest accomplishment is being the play-by-play man for the PBA Tour. And he now has a podcast that is on Facebook that you can find, as well as other places, The Nooner with Dave Lamont. And with that, we will bring to the show Dave Lamont. How are you?
I'm back. I'm good. I like how you describe me as a has-been. That's good.
That's not what I said at all.
He has been this and has been no. Listen. I'm glad to be here. I got to be you last year. Now I'm Stu. I've covered all the bases on this one, but we all want to be Lucas Wiseman, who apparently might be Stu's traveling companion for all we know.
Yeah, nobody takes more vacations than Stu. I don't know how he managed, I'm sorry, Lucas.
I don't know how he does it, but he's living his best life.
My kid is in here and says, "Is Hilltop North Rock easier?" What? I think it might be easier. Right? It doesn't carry as well, but it's certainly easier. So, what's happened down in South Florida? You can catch us up on all the events and things.
Oh man. You and I talking here before. The biggest thing going on now is everybody is angry. The Hurricanes are only 2-2 in football. The Dolphins are 1-2, losing to the Raiders in overtime. People are waiting on the Heat to see if they're going to be mad at them or not. Hockey sneaks in under the radar here. The Marlins, as usual, fading out of relevance, that they're rarely in relevance. So sporting-wise, it's, in other words, fairly typical. And this is how it goes about every year.
Yeah, I was going to say, other than the fans there, I think that's what everybody pretty much expected out of all those programs.
Yeah, I think, the thing about the Dolphins everybody's all off about now is that since Tua Tagovailoa has been injured again, he may be able to play this week. So you had a backup quarterback who almost led them to a victory. Would have been a nice win for them, obviously, to be 2-1. They're playing the Colts, who aren't very good, so they should be able to win down here Sunday. But yeah, it's a weird environment down here, Chris, because it's a big city with so many people from so many different areas, not just Miami, but all over. I'm in the Fort Lauderdale area, and it's very diverse around here. That your attendance depends on who you're playing, not on who you are. And so if the Giants or the Jets are here, you're going to get a packed house, or the Bills. And if it's somebody else, like this Colts game, I'm getting emails for ticket offers. Come to the game, $2 will get you in. It's same with the Hurricanes, as you know. So it's a weird place. It's like Los Angeles. It really is. There's not just a little difference between here and LA, except for the loyalty of the baseball fan is much better out there. But the weather's nice. The humidity's down in the 70s. Look out, winter's here. So I'm ready. Good deal.
Hey, with that, maybe we'll bring on our guest. He's been waiting for a minute because of our earlier glitch. This man has been the best bowler on tour for a season with the highest average in the middle of the Mark Roth, Marshall Holman era and Earl. Ooh. So it was not by accident. So he's been the high point leader. He's been a BJ All-American. He has written a book. He's done a DVD. He's run 36 straight sold-out camps. And this last week, he actually did something that no one has done. He's put together an exclusively two-handed camp with a bunch of the two-handed stars from the PBA Tour. Good friend of the show and friend of mine, Mark Baker.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing today?
Well, very good, Bakes. How are you? I'm
excellent out here in gray California. It's a little overcast today, so it's really nice when it's in the 70s. Kind of like Florida. We're having winter right now.
Charlie Taps here. He says this could be time for the all-new Dave Lamont Celebrity Highlight.
Oh, it's heartbreaking, Chris. Highlight is where I used to work at Dania High in the 80s, and I don't know if you guys ever swung by there in the Florida swings you were on. It's closing. Highlight has faded down to virtually nothing, and I announced there for 7 years, and it was my life for 7 years, and now that place is closing down. And I'm not sure what they're going to do with the real estate there. It's attached to a casino. For Charlie, if we're going to do Celebrity Highlight, we better hurry the hell up because I got to get back out there and play. I played for a while very amateurishly, but God, it was the best. So yeah, that's a bit of sad news, Charlie. I don't know if we're gonna be able to pull that off.
So what broke it? Was it
Oh man,
the gambling, the fixing?
no, nothing like that at all. What broke it was several things, and I'll be brief because to be fair to Mark, the late '80s there was a player strike. It ended up, if you'd like to win a drink at a bar, tell them, hey, what was the longest strike in professional sports history? And they'll go, I don't know, baseball was no highlight over 3 years. And at the same time, that hurt because they literally brought out guys that I could have beaten to play some games. And I was probably a C- level player. So that's how bad it was. Then you had the arrival of pro sports. We only had the Dolphins at one point. Then in the early 90s, here comes the NBA and the NHL and Major League Baseball. And then you're winning World Series and NBA championships. So that killed it. The lottery, the arrival of casinos, and now the expansion of casinos. And even when you have a casino next to a highlight court, it's not helping. So gradually, one by one, they started flipping the lights off all around Florida and even other parts of the country that had highlight. And you could see the end was coming. And then they made a law. They passed a law that you don't have to have a pari-mutuel license to keep your casino open. That's the end of that. So it was no big surprise that it's closed. Here's how badly they want to close it, guys. The players, Dania, have a contract that's good till 2023. They're going to pay them off rather than keep the place open and play out the contract.
Wow.
It's hard. To me, it's sad. It's a true part of Florida, but it's, as they say in The Godfather, it's business, not personal.
Well, as our illustrious chat group is chimed in from anywhere in the world, but right now it's from your Belinda living room.
It is the front room. I got the cat condo in the back and the Zootopia logos on the wall back there that Gage put on, and the world map where I've given all the virtual lessons. So yeah, I'm at home for another hour. Then I drive off to Oceanside for lessons.
There you go. Coach Baker took a virtual lesson with that about a month ago and throwing it great sense. It's weird. It's a little bit the same of my story. About 6 weeks ago, I came there and wasn't bowling very good. Probably maybe as poorly as I've ever bowled since I've known you. It took you a couple of days versus normally an hour. And
true. That was not the best shape. It wasn't that your shape was bad. Just things have just, we really hadn't spent a real hard practice session on the lanes in quite a while. We had done here and there, but that was the first time we actually, let's block off 2 days. Let's just go down, put the time in, and it's just reps. And it's my eye against what you're doing now compared to what you did. And then luckily I keep all the videos from old, and I showed you what you looked like in your prime 2011, and you went, oh my. And then once you saw that, the rest was kind of easy, I thought. It wasn't, and in the scope of giving lessons, that wasn't very hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Mark, let me ask you something. Knowing Chris's knowledge of the game, and in all seriousness, I was about what a brilliant technician and tactician he is, and it's been his trademark. When you're dealing with somebody like that who knows as much as he does, how do you get through to him?
That's easy. This is pretty much like I'm a lawyer going to the judge trying to get something approved. Okay. So I have to explain it first. Here's why I'm asking you to do what I want you to do, because your ball's doing this and we don't want that. So we're going to do it my way. And if we do it, your ball will react accordingly. I never ask him to do it because he's never going to do it. So once you realize how he's wired, he's pretty much like a mechanical engineer is how I would put it. So it has to make sense to him mentally before he'll do it physically. And then when he does it, it'll be really good. And he'll still say it's not very good. So then you just got to stay with it and you got to learn not to back off, because if you back off, Chris will win the argument. So it's fine. It's made me a much better coach coaching Chris. I've always said he's the easiest lesson I give and the hardest lesson I give. Luckily, this one was pretty easy.
Okay, because it fascinates me because you know what a thinker he is when he's bowling. I mean, you can almost hear him think. And I'm serious. I mean, I've seen you long enough, and I've known you a while now, so I kind of get how this all goes. So I find it interesting that in other words, to use the old football analogy, Mark, you tell Chris to run through the wall. He won't run through the wall until you tell him why he has to run through the wall.
Pretty much. He's going to poke holes in it. He's going to say it's not going to work. I don't want to. He never really says I don't want to do that. That's the easy part. It's just a little bit of back and forth. And this time I have to admit it was a little bit easier because he really was throwing it bad. When you're throwing it not the way you want to, you're pretty much, I'm willing to do anything because I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing. Right. So that started it. We made a couple changes quick, and I thought it was easy. I mean, it's what I do for a living, so I have to be good at communicating because all different walks of life want to hear it different. So it's my job I like to always explain it before I ask you to do anything. That way, when you do it the way I want, then you see the ball reaction you want, then you and I are on the same page. I think too many times people take lessons as adversarial. I'm the coach, so you do what I say no matter what. Well, I was that kid in school. Why would I do that? If I had a baseball coach and tell me to do something, then I've seen him play baseball. I'm like, well, you weren't any good. Why would I listen to you? So I was always that same way. So it's not very hard. You just better have your answers ready for Chris. He does not suffer fools gladly. If you don't know what you're doing, he will let you know quickly, which I have no problem with. That's not a big deal.
Alan Riley, a good friend of mine. I skipped on Southern with him last night, had a little hangnail thing, and he intimated that perhaps it was because he is my personal kryptonite other than Tom Hess. And every time I bowl with him, he suddenly shoots 700 instead of 570. And that I was just skipping out, so I didn't have to bowl bad again. But he says basically that's the same way that Chris's kids have to ask for money. Prove why you need it and have a full documentation of where it's going to go. Fortunately, my kid has my back. He knows where his bread's buttered. So,
I think I've been around Chris a little bit when it comes to money. I think my job as a coach is way easier than opening that wallet.
Ooh, that is his rep, I must admit. I don't know how he got that way, but that is his reputation.
Well cultivated.
Yes. Well, I have to notice very clear here, Mark, my sartorial hero from BA 50, Keith Lesko, has chimed in a couple times. Keith, keep it up, okay? Just whatever you do, keep it going, buddy, because we would always find, even if you maybe weren't bowling well, and that wasn't very often, we would find you because I had to see what you were wearing. So,
you never have to find him. He looks like he's heading to the rally every time he shows up to the bowl. So,
Hey, Mark, I'm assuming you and Chris worked side by side for those 2 days, right? It was not virtual?
No, he came to California.
Right. So I'm seeing people talking about virtual lessons, and all lessons to me are in athletics like golf, for example, or bowling, seem to me to function easier face-to-face. So how do you manage a virtual lesson with somebody?
Well, the pandemic or the COVID kind of made that had to happen because out in California, we weren't open and I still had to pay the bills. So I've always had a lot of requests. People would always send me videos, but it wasn't very good. I wanted to coach on the same software and system I use when I'm giving a lesson in person. So I met a gentleman in San Diego that was very tech savvy. We've put together a system. So on my website, I tell you where to film from. I tell you how to hold the camera. So what happens is when you do it, when you send me the videos, they're exactly the way I would film you if you were with me. So the perspective I have when I look at it and how I want to compare it and the things I look for. And then a lot of it is I would give bowlers a lot of credit. They're very good at their own self-analysis. I'd say 95% of the bowlers, when they tell me what they do wrong, they're correct. So once I know if it's timing or if it's balance or its ability to stay behind the ball, and they let me know what their issue is, then I've developed my own system on where to look for things like that or what causes that. And then I just do a lesson, about a 10, 15 minute. It comes back in a video, like a YouTube video. And I explain it in pretty much detail. And it's just like taking a lesson from me, except you're not sitting next to me, but it's the same software, the same lines I'm drawing. I use different people next to him, Chris or Bill O'Neill or Jason Belmonte or whoever I have in my library if they're two-handed. So that's the best I could do without being in New Jersey, New York, Illinois, the 3 states that dominate the virtual lessons.
Linda says he can coach the Barnzy family. He can coach anyone in the world, a female, a male, two-hander, and a lefty. And said you need a raise.
Sure, I agree.
We have a good question here from the chat, and that'll lead us into what you did last week. But which two-handed PBA player has the healthiest overall form, assuming all are obviously excellent at what they do?
Well, after spending a lot of time with them last week, that's kind of a loaded question. I got to spend a lot of time with 4 of them: Chris Sloan, Chris Vi, Kyle Troop, and Anthony Simonson. And as much as they all look a little bit different when we broke it down on video and did the class, there were a lot of similarities. That would be really hard to pick. Chris Vi is by far probably the best athlete. Sloan's probably the funniest guy out there to work with. Kyle's going to be the player of the year, and Simonson does a lot of things right. I would have no problem if Simonson needed a sponsor. I'd have no problem putting up my money to back that guy. I guess that's pretty good answer. But Kyle, I mean, they're all really good. And then, if the guy down in Australia decides he wants to bowl, backing him the last 10 years would have been financially okay.
Yeah, he doesn't lose a lot. So let's talk about last week. You did something that I don't believe anybody has done, or at least not done to the level and scale that you put it together at. Tell us what you did last week in Las Vegas.
I had my first two-handed, specifically camp bakes. The only way you could attend a camp was to be a two-handed bowler. We had a full field, 36. We had a giant waiting list. The amount of people that wanted to do this was overwhelming. I know it was very kid-centric, a lot of 12 to 18-year-olds during the week. Got to take them out of school. Very hard to get lanes on the weekend. But it sold out, and it exceeded all the expectations I had. I think it exceeded expectations the people coming to camp had, the coaches. I'd never worked with those guys before. So I just was very stunned how well it went. And, they're kids, and they were in, and the pros were unbelievably good on the lanes. They were great in the classroom. It was pretty amazing. I'm still a little bit shocked about how good it went.
Simo says he'll keep the sponsorship thing in mind for you. So,
no problem, my friend.
Yeah,
I've already written you one check. I can write you another one.
There's probably a few bidders on that one.
I was going to say that I'm not sure I want to do that 95-5 deal, but that's all right.
Well, Charlie, old friend Charlie Tapp from your days out on tour. How far away is the tour from being all two-handed?
In 10, I'll say you bowl the old-fashioned way.
Say that again. You broke up just a touch.
I think in about 10 years, I'm not sure it'll ever be all two-handed, but in 10 years, when you go to bowl one-handed, some of the people say, you bowl the old way. That's where I think it's going to go. Yeah. I talked to Mark Sullivan. He had the 12 and under divisions in junior gold at his bowling center this year where his pro shop is. He said the girls were like 40, 50% two-handed, and the under 12 boys were 80% two-handed.
The girls
I did junior gold for CBS Sports Network in 2019, and we did all the different age groups. And to Mark's point, I don't know if I saw maybe 2 one-handed boys, and I don't remember if it was as high as 40% on the girls, but I was surprised at the number of girls who were two-handed, because we really haven't seen two-handed, PWBA pros yet, at least not very successful ones, not like the ones that are stars at the moment. But yeah, and that's why I started laughing, thinking about the debate a few years ago about banning two-handed bowling. Like, you ain't doing that. Your future lies in these teenagers, and so you would set these kids back. But that, to your point, yes, that's coming. You can't stop it.
I mean, but there are always going to be one-handers who are very proficient. You got your Bill O'Neills, and you've got, EJ Tackett, probably the most talented guy on tour, period. So you're never going to get rid of that. But I just think, nobody ever takes it into perspective from the kid's point of view. It's always from the parents' point of view how wrong it is. But the kid's point of view, for me, it hits home in 1975 or 6 when I started getting into bowling, and I was told to bowl like Dave Davis because I was tall and skinny. And then a guy named Mark Roth bowled on TV. And I said, I'm good. I'm going to bowl like that guy. Yeah. I'm going to see how fast I can tear my thumb. I want to rip my thumb to shreds because Roth does. I'm going to run up there, and I'm going to make this thing hit like it's never hit. And because, you know why? It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. When you see a two-hander's ball hit and it makes that sound, it's cool. You can never put a dollar value on what's cool. If it wasn't cool, then all the rock stars wouldn't be married to supermodels. Because Keith Richards is a very good-looking dude. He's managed to find good-looking women for the last 50 years. Cool is cool.
Well, and a couple of questions have come up, guys, and this is another question that's come up because we're just now seeing two-handers have longer careers. the wear and tear. I mean, Kevin has one. Alan also has a question about the same thing, guys. And
Yeah.
I'd love to hear from both of you about the sustainability of this style on wear and tear.
How long has Belmo been on tour? I mean, he's going to be the one you measure it against. He's bowled the most games and had the most success. I think when we broke it down at camp, it's functionally pretty easy to do. I mean, I have always said teaching two-handed is much easier because I don't have to deal with the backswing. I mean, there's no length of swing. Is how far can you get your left arm to go back? And we kind of, at camp, I'm not going to give away all the secrets, but at camp we discussed there's a very specific method to making your left arm go back farther. And the farther your left arm goes back, the more lag you can create, the better time you can create. But I think it's just being able to bend at the waist and having some strong legs. And, I'm not sure it's as bad as everybody thinks.
No, I think if you walk it back, in your era, most guys stopped bowling at 35.
Correct.
And part of that was the number of games you bowled. You bowled massive. Walter bowled 1,300 games competitive games in a season.
Yep.
Without practice, without all the rest. Now, for one, we don't bowl that many games. But two, guys in general have gotten in better shape.
True.
Okay.
Had reactive not come around, I don't know why Marshall couldn't have bowled forever. I mean, his legs were in fantastic shape.
Yeah, Marshall was a runner. Marshall was always in great shape.
Yeah, I mean, Amleto is 60, and he doesn't look significantly different than he did when he was 30. And so I think the wear and tear, once you really break down the two-handed game, there's not that much different. Your legs have to be good. But the way people throw the ball now, your legs have to be good anyway.
And think about this from another standpoint. You always see everybody putting pictures of their hand on Facebook after they bowl a weekend tournament. They bowl, 20, 25 games. They're showing their hand all torn apart. You don't ever see two-handers do that.
Well, everybody tapes
their thumb in it.
And there's no thumb to tear up.
Right. So there is some upside. I mean, obviously we're talking about the very best. And it's fun to hook the ball. But obviously when you have a very unique style like that, when it goes south, it really goes south. So the one-hander is always going to be, I think, much more consistent. The two-hander is going to be much more up and down. But I have two 60-year-old guys that are very, successful in their private lives, and they're retired, and the money's not a problem. They're both taking the year off of league to bowl two-handed. And I asked them why. They went, well, one-handed, I never throw five-baggers, and I never throw messengers. So I'd rather go 140, 140, 240 than 180, 180, 180. There's something about five-baggers and six-baggers, seeing that head pin jump across the deck and get the 10. I mean, that's why we all play golf. That's why, Bryson DeChambeau is fun to watch. You can't fathom hitting it that far. So all of a sudden you change your style and you can get the ball to hook 20 boards, then you've been yanking 10 all your life. I get it. So that it's definitely a thing. And I think it's always funny when it's a flash in the pan, it's going to go away. No. When Kyle gets player of the year this year, that'll be 7 out of the last 9 years. A two-hander's been player of the year. That's a decade. It's not going away. So
yeah, this comment here.
Either way of bowling, man.
I bowl with younger two-handers and they can't control the ball. Well, younger rev rate players, one or two-handed, can never control the ball.
True.
I mean, it's the same thing. When you hit it the furthest, you hit a golf ball the furthest, of course it goes everywhere for a little while. And then when it stops going everywhere and you can find it, then you start beating everyone because you have such a big advantage. And it's a lot of the same thing. The best young players are almost never the guys that throw it straightest. Tommy Jones, it wasn't that he was the best shot maker, but he was left of the field at 17 years old. And when there's oil left of you and hook right of you, the game isn't very hard.
Well, name a sport in the last 30, 40 years as everything's changed, where being the strongest with the most powerful, whatever that sport is, has not dominated. And then you get guys that have a lot of power, that have a little bit of control. Then you have your Federers, and you have your Mike Trouts, and then you have, and Dustin Johnson this weekend watching the Ryder Cup. When Dustin Johnson's on, it's over. I mean, as good as Bryson, Dustin Johnson hit his tee-ball straight, he's putting for a 10-foot birdie on just about every hole. And it's just he can hit the farthest or the straightest and can control it. Every sport's about power. I mean, that's just how – if you watch Pete Sampras in his prime and now you watch just, Djokovic or Federer before last couple of years or, the guy over there in the French Open, Nadal, they're smoking the ball compared to what Sampras did or Becker, those kind of guys. They like to remember how good they were. If you put them side by side for the old guys, the new guys, it's amazing. And the part that the two-handers get taken to task on is they throw it everywhere. Well, when we did the Team USA trials 2 or 3 years ago, Chris had always won the most accurate with the ability to change his speeds. Then Kyle Troop beat him. Handily, Kyle beat him.
No,
it was amazing how good Kyle can hit a target.
No. I'm not going to let you.
Come on now.
Andrew tied me. He was the first person. Kyle did not beat me. He's
Come
not
on.
there yet. Come on. I locked the same numbers you did. But that being said, when they put Jason up and he's on, that's what he has. His speed control and his variance is almost none. He has the best speed control mixed with the best upper end top 5% power, and he's also top 10% accuracy. Well, that's great, because when you put up a guy like this, who is a notable exception, he might be the best repeater of that generation's players. But he's still doing it at 400 RPMs, and Jason's still doing it at 540.
Well, you're never gonna get rid of one-handers, and there's always going to be. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be. Bill O'Neill's career is great, and I said Tackett's probably the most talented guy on tour. I probably use EJ in my filming more than anybody else to compare how to throw a bowling ball off your hand and how not to overturn it, and the things EJ does right is beautiful. So I'm just saying it's a different style. It's just a different. It's like rock and roll, baby. They're just playing the guitar a little bit different, man. That's all it is. It's not Chuck Berry. It's something else.
And a couple of things. One, somebody pointed out, and I saw a lot of PBA 50 this summer, and Chris, you obviously were there. Walter Ray does it two-handed occasionally. I didn't see it this year. I didn't obviously watch every shot, but even he has incorporated that occasionally when he feels it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, he will, but actually he hurt his groin.
Right.
And so the one thing you really have to be able to do two-handed, because there's no backswing, is your legs you have to push like a pitcher and to create ball speed, and he couldn't do it. And so it kind of got eliminated from his arsenal. There's another player who's been one-handed forever who switched to two-handed here recently. That Ricky Schissler is getting there to go. And
Mark, also I wanted to ask about the equipment evolution, because what you're talking about with golf, if we gave Dustin Johnson Jack Nicklaus's persimmon driver from 1970, would he be able to do what he does as far as the power and the distance? I do think equipment factors into it. The fact that, and the same with bowling, as you guys know the evolution of the bowling ball and what that's been like. And the intelligence of bowling also, too. I think there's more intel out there than ever before. Same with golf. But I do think that's part of what goes into it. I would love to see Dustin Johnson or DeChambeau go out there with, the older golf balls, the balladed balls, that if you hit it slightly off, that ball's gone. It's got a big old smile in it, and how they would do. But with the bowling equipment, it's also something I think does have to be counted in, doesn't it?
Yeah, but this group of bowlers have only known one thing, so they just adapted to what was available to them. So I always said, if you let Don Johnson come back as a 15-year-old right now, Don Johnson would figure it out and be a top 10 player. I'd imagine Dick Weber would just figure it out in no time. If Dick was 15, with the amount of touch Dick Weber had at the bottom of the swing, I mean, he had the most touch of anybody because he had different follow-through on every swing, but he never missed his target. So Dick would figure it out. You're just a product of your environment. So if you put Dustin back there and he tried to hit it, Dustin's a little, Jack was big, but Dustin's real big. If you look at the size of Dustin's hands and his forearms, and Dustin isn't trying to hit it. He's just swinging. So I think you take the best, you put Ben Hogan in today's world, Ben Hogan would probably never miss the green. He'd hit every green in regulation. You let him have that much room to move the ball and how big the sweet spot is in these balls, and Ben Hogan's ability to hit it straight or whatever you want to do then. I mean, I've read all these legendary things he's done, and I watched one of those World Series of, the Shell deal. Yes. He had 18 greens of regulation like it was nothing, and he was 50-something years old. It was impressive. You give Ben Hogan today's equipment, he's not gonna get cheated. He's gonna be right there. The best players every generation will take whatever equipment's available, and they'll just make it the best. That's how I see it. And the two-handers are maxing out the available equipment they're given. Two-handed max them out. If you can hit a target and you have the max power, you can have the best reaction. So they're doing it to the best of their ability.
speaking to Dave's point, I do think the one part of the equipment that makes the learning curve easier is that lane conditions are a little bit softer. And so when that early part where you can't control it very well, I mean, you don't throw it in the gutter. It hooks back. And it might not strike, but for the most part, it hooks back. It hooks crazy, uncontrollable, but that's way cooler than throwing it straight and hitting the 3-pin and getting 7. If you get 4, but you hook the whole lane, well, it still looks cool. And so the cool factor quotient is way up. Keith Lesko brought up something. I have to go back and find it, but he said that, did you see that? There it is. Did you see the video of the young lady from Sweden that
I did?
Chris Viale posted? Yeah, that might be the most refined one I've seen so far. And then I'm sure you can talk. Somebody was talking about a younger kids grasping two-handed because they can throw so much heavier weights. You really see that in the 12U division. That two-handers dominate that division because generally a normal size 12-year-old probably can't throw much more than a 12-pound ball, whereas two-handed you can probably throw 13, 14.
Well, yeah. Plus on two-handed, you got to have some foot speed. So what's a 12-year-old kid? And I mean, some of these 12-year-olds we had at camp, they only weigh 70, 80 pounds. So how are you going to get it down there if you can't run? Well, the two-handed thing allows you to have quicker feet if you'd like. Chris Fye's feet are pretty slow, but Chris is a big guy.
Well,
so some of the young kids like it because, everybody tells you slow your feet down. And two-handed, speed your feet up. So for one thing, the most common tip given is wrong in two-handed. So the kids don't want to go slow, so they want to go fast. And the big advantage, I think, is not having their thumb in it. And what happens is the kids are allowed to experiment more two-handed. So like with my own son, Gage, when he bowled one-handed, he came over the top of it pretty hard. We don't bowl that much for coming from a bowling family, but he spun it real hard. He kind of flipped it. As soon as I took his thumb out of it, let him go to two-handed, now he can hook, he's not the best bowler, but he can average 180 at times. He can really hook it, he can roll it, and he can throw a backup ball, and I didn't tell him how to do any of it. He just figured it out on his own because his thumb's not in there, so he can just mess around with his hand. And so like yesterday we bowled, he threw a backup ball at every split, and lo and behold, he makes the 2, 7, 10 and almost got the 8. So they leave crazy splits, but hey, I made that one, I made this one, I made the washout. Things that he could never do before one-handed, he's able to do two-handed. But more importantly, we were laughing during the lesson how crazy he was doing it. So the practice was way fun. So he got, Daddy, when can we do that again? That was a blast. I want to hook him on the strike, throw backups on the spares. And you know what? That's cool. That's fine. He's not paying my bills throwing a two-handed ball 12-handed. He can do whatever he wants. If that makes him happy, hell, let's just do it.
I think this is an interesting observation, I agree. While the best would still be the best no matter the equipment, it has expanded the gaps between the top, middle, and bottom. I agree. I think reactive might be one of the first accurate terms in bowling because it's made slightly easy patterns really easy, and it's made slightly hard patterns look really hard for all but the top level. And that's where you see way more urethane. And I think what we think is hard now, I'm not sure is actually that hard when you're throwing a urethane ball. You see guys control the pocket a lot with it, and it goes right into this question. The advantages that two-handers have with urethane versus the rest of the field. Because urethane is much easier to control to hit the pocket, but average rev rates don't strike as much with it. In your era, you were one of the strongest releases on tour, led the tour with a 212 average.
213.
213. And now it's routinely 228, 227 every year. Less games. Some of those things come into play. But
yeah, my high average to this day from 66 was Wayne Zahn was like 209. Then I was the next lowest in 85 at 213. And it's never been below me since. It was 213 my year. And the next year was like 214 or 15. That was John Gant. So in 85, 86, they let him hook. So the two of the biggest, strongest ever had high average because the lanes were so bad. We could just throw it harder than everybody else because they really hooked. I mean, that line in the Luster King was there. So it was a different era. The balls were what they were, but the lanes were so tough. That was before there's any synthetics. Now the scoring pace is so much higher. So we just, with the urethane, what Chris is saying, I can't tell you how many 207 cleans I shot. I'm like, wow, that was a really good game. And it didn't bother me. If a pro shoots 207 clean now and leaves 3 flat 10s, they're slightly worried that the Earth's going to spin off its axis. Right, Chris?
Well, you walked into
the same game. We might be, we might be leaving the Earth. So it's a whole. I mean, well, we shot 207 clean. Hey, the next game you go spare 4-bagger. We were good. You guys go 207 clean on the wrong stuff. You guys are getting lapped.
Yeah, if it's not U.S. Open,
yep,
then that's a pretty poor game because the pace is
because the scoring pace is so much higher. It's a different way of looking at bowling.
Right. Well, you used to say if you were 100 over every round, it's for a 6-game block. So approximately
you made the finals every week.
216 was fine every week. Well, now, 100. It's closer to I need to be 140 over every block.
Right.
If we bowled that many games, which we actually don't that often, but.
Yeah, I remember we both practice session on tour, and Houston, my best buddy, would say, "You give me 200 over this week for 18, I won't even try to qualify. I'll just see you Thursday night in the finals." And he was right. Pretty much every week we bowled on. They were just hard. Whatever, we didn't have the name patterns. Our patterns were more. We would bowl practice session like, well, Holman's going to lead this week. Okay, they were really, really hard from the track. It's going to be Berardi and Roth and Janello because the guys from East Coast are good at that. Wow, this fallback, they're pretty easy. California and St. Louis are going to do well. They're terrible from the gutter. All the guys from the South region are going to bowl good. We didn't have patterns on names. We just knew certain conditions, certain guys bowled really, really good. Oh, you got to drift a little right and you got to play 6, 7, 8 up straight. You aren't beating Voss or Ferraro ever. Ever. Those two guys were dominating on a pattern that was out there for a while. And they bowled great on a lot of stuff, but there were certain things that, you let them really, really hook from fifth arrow or left. You had to go by Dave Husted to win. So we had it more by who the player were. We didn't have names on.
Does that hold up today?
That'd have to be a question for Chris.
Not so much geographically anymore, because the best players are so much more because the world's expanded. You were exposed kind of what you're exposed, and like I said, California used to have run lanes certain ways, and the Midwest would run lanes certain ways, and the best centers would do, whatever's Dick Weber's center would do this, and then it kind of expanded out. Now you see junior gold kids that, they've bowled across the country. They bowl on all the different patterns, the different lengths. And so if you only throw it one way now, it's pretty hard the way bowling is set up as a more versatile type thing that it gets pretty difficult to only be good at playing one part of the lane anymore.
YouTube changed that. YouTube and Kegel. In Kegel, there's all the patterns, and if your bowling center has any kind of machine, you can download the patterns. When I bowled, the only time you could bowl on a tour pattern was on tour. And when you asked them what the pattern was, let your ball be your guide. If you ask again, you're out of the tournament. We weren't even allowed to even talk about the conditions. So we weren't allowed to ask the guy next to you what you were playing on. There was no such thing as a tour rep. So it was the Stone Ages, I guess, but yeah, there was no giving you of information was never the PBA's way of doing things back then. Here's your starting lane. There's a condition. Go bowl. If you don't like it, go home. And there were so many people on tour, and then another 100 guys bowling the rabbit to get in. They had no worries about getting guys to bowl. I mean, it was a traveling circus. It was a blast, but it's way different. So with YouTube, all the kids can watch you can take Chris. I mean, I'd imagine how many times has Chris Barnes been watched on YouTube in the last 15 years by all the different generations of bowlers. Now all these two-handers are watching Simonson. They all knew Belmo. They all like Chris Vi. They're all watching these different types of players on YouTube, and they're slowing it down. They're going out there, and they're practicing it exactly what they look on their phone, and they're doing it. Well, I got to see Mark Roth for about 15 minutes on Saturday afternoon, and there was no taping of it. We watched it, and we went out there, and kind of what I remembered we would try to go do, and bunch of juniors. I mean, 1 year in junior league at Champion Lanes, the third game of league, you either had to bowl like Roth or Holman. We all loaded. So you did the third game, you could not use your own style. So none of us could do Roth. So the whole league kind of bowled like Marshall Holman. So that's how different it was because there was no YouTube.
That's as a junior bowler, me and my buddy, whose son actually got drafted by the Bears, actually as a lineman. So he was a little bigger than me. He was about 6'6" and had me by about 30 pounds. So he was Roth and I was Holman, and that's how we bowled practice all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
You go back, and like now my son, who started a year ago last May, basically taking bowling seriously, and that's all he did. He just looked at videos of. He would look at Belmo because he's the best player, and then he would look at Simo, and then he'd look at taking advantage of your unfair advantages. I would just text these guys and go, hey, what about fit? What do you do with pitches? What do you do when this happens? And Chris Vai and then these guys in Simo, they were even in Belmo, even they were super, super accessible and willing to help him out. And it's a pretty cool thing to be able to bounce an idea off some, because I haven't walked a mile. It's not an area I could really help him with what happens at the beginning, and then he's sending videos to you and now he's going on the varsity of the best college team in the world. It's been pretty cool to watch, and it's just getting started. So here you go. This is your area right here. 3 pumps of the bug sprayer from 3 feet high, 2 pumps from 2 feet, cross wipe 15 feet. Have at it, ladies.
And the guy that was doing it was smoking a cigarette. It was always one lane had a little ash on it. That's the one that hooked early, right, Charlie? And guess what? We didn't know any better, so we just went out and bowled. And we thought, all right, lane 27. Obviously, he dropped the cigarette on this lane because it's hooking really early. So then by about the second game, we all knew it. And then it is what it is, but we knew if you bowled really good, and after a day and a half, 24 guys were going to get to keep bowling, and I had bills to pay. So, the guy that had my mortgage, Wells Fargo, didn't ask me much what the condition was. Mr. Baker, you got my money this month? I got your money. You must like the condition this week. They always ask the question backwards. They never asked me how much knee bend I had until I cashed. You got my mortgage? I got your mortgage. You must have good knee bend. Yeah. The questions are always asked in reverse when you bowl for a living. You got my money? I got your money. You must hit your target well.
A little off topic, but did anybody have you watched Monday Night Football with Eli and Peyton?
I watched the highlights this morning. It's pretty funny stuff.
Yeah, I watched a lot of it when the Pack was playing last week, but I did not see it last night because the Dallas Cowboys make me physically ill.
And that'll go over well with my group here. And
sorry, guys. I'm a DC guy by birth, so I'm more of that. Plus, they're just overhyped, and every year they're going to win the Super Bowl, and every year they don't for the last 20. So
yeah,
And plus, I know that every damn Sunday night we're going to get one Giants Cowboys disaster that I'm going to be watching The Simpsons and Family Guy. So, but to your point, Chris, it's great TV and it's a brilliant idea.
I think a lot of it is good. Honestly, I'd like to see him. I think this is where it stands out of what you do, Dave, as a play-by-play guy. The ability to inject enthusiasm and feel and move the level in the booth up and down, which is not the strength of players, generally speaking, because I find them a little bit mundane. When exciting things are happening on the field, they still break it down and are very analytical, and I think that's a lot how I would do it as well. But you miss out on some of the excitement of what's going on, and having somebody in there with them. Where basically, if they were the other two guys in the booth, I think that it would serve them well. It did strike me when I was listening to it, and I felt the lack of enthusiasm going on there with two guys doing it for 3 hours. And I felt slightly sorry for you and your 248 hours of streaming.
Oh, that, yes. With no one to talk to. Yeah. They have a lot more toys to play with than I do. The advantage is, first off, people have been trying to get Peyton on TV ever since he walked away. And I can't even imagine what the size of the offers he received. Can't even imagine to do television. So he's just a natural performer. And Eli is sneaky. And they do have the very nice brotherly bond, so they can poke each other. I think there's a clip from last week where Peyton predicted something and it didn't happen. And Eli goes, "Yeah, nice job, Romo." And, it was pretty cute. And when they have guests to play off of, you got some amazing stuff. Not last night, but I didn't watch it. Maybe Mark saw something that was really cool. But the stuff with Gronkowski admitting that he never watches film.
Yeah.
That would be like you, Chris, going to bowl without looking at topography or patterns. You just bring like 2 bowling balls and have at it. That's how I feel like Gronk would be as a bowler. I got 2 balls here. I'm good.
That would be Norm Duke.
Yeah. Well, it's Pete.
Yeah.
Pete. You just went, yeah, I don't know anything about bowling balls. I just throw them and they hook or they don't hook.
That's it. That's the Gronk school.
and I just won that way for 45 years, so it must
Right.
be okay.
Yeah,
It always helps to have the most talent in the room.
Well, it doesn't. It turns out that's not so bad. Yeah, it is pretty cool. Actually, there's a good question here. Alan Riley says, "Who is on your announcing Mount Rushmore?"
Well, that only gives me 4. Wow. Now remember, I'm not a young man. Don't let the hair color fool you. So I would have to put different people. I would think Jim McKay, the old Wide World of Sports host, would be on there because nobody needed more versatility. I think Vin Scully has to be there because he's the greatest of all in one sport, and plus he's versatile also. So Scully goes on there for sure. I keep going back to the old cowboy from Wyoming, Kurt Gowdy, for versatility. And man, I guess because I this is hard. I guess I would have to. The name is popping up is either going to be Howard Cosell or Keith Jackson, who's much more conventional. And I'll probably go with Keith, but that's a play-by-play role. Cosell obviously was vastly different, except for his boxing, where he was phenomenal. That's a very hard question because Alan mentions Jack Buck, magnificent announcer, Jack Buck, and a hell of a guy. And by the way, Bakes, there's the guy who was smoking the cigarette while he was putting the oil on. It would have been Jack Buck. I got a chance. Oh, a real quick story. Years ago, Monday Night Football on radio was Jack Buck and Hank Stram, the old Kansas City coach.
Yep.
And they were the legitimate odd couple. I got to interview them at their hotel and when I came down to do a Dolphins game. And I go meet them at their hotel. Buck meets me in the lobby, smoking a cigarette with a khaki slacks and a St. Louis Cardinals gray T-shirt on. Come on, let's go back to my room here, kid. Okay, sure. Here comes Stram, who's pressed from head to toe. His hair has been ironed. His shoelaces have been ironed. He is resplendent in an all-white tennis outfit. The man can't even spell the word wrinkle. He is sartorial perfection. And all I had to do was basically, so what do you think, guys? And that was it. 20 minutes of pure gold from the two of them playing off each other. It was incredible. Yes, Jack Buck. That's what I mean. That's a tough question for a guy like me. You know, we kid Chris is a bowling nerd. I'm an announcing nerd. And, you know, that's what I wanted to do. So I do pay attention to that stuff pretty seriously.
Yeah, growing up in California, I would imagine I was fairly jaded on a daily basis. I had Vin Scully, I had Dick Enberg with the Angels,
Yep.
and I had Chick Hearn.
So Chick Hearn's another one. And
I just thought they were all. I mean, he invented half the some things they talk about. So we just thought that was normal having those three guys. Yep. We didn't realize that we had arguably the baseball and basketball. We had the two best ever.
Oh, you did. And Enberg was a magnificent football announcer as well as a great baseball announcer.
Yeah, he did golf too. They were all pretty talented. So,
and
there was a reason
Wimbledon.
Yeah, there was a reason you'd go to Dodger Stadium, be 50,000 people in the stands with a transistor to their ear. They were all listening to Vin. Man, he was the best.
Dave and Kelly should be ladies broadcast team every tournament. No guests. Great coming down. I respectfully disagree slightly on half that team. But
yes, well, I will say this for Kelly, and in all seriousness, and for those who don't know, Chris and I did many women tournaments together. Her improvement as a broadcaster has been dramatic.
Yeah,
she has really gotten it, and she's more comfortable in the situations when she's on camera. This year, she and I did a few events together when she was either with Carolyn at the center or might have been home, and we got to do one where she won, which was just awesome. But yeah, her improvement, give her a lot of credit. She's worked on it quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think she has gotten really good. So I enjoyed doing it. I don't know if I was good or better or not, but
you were great. It's funny with you guys,
really
and I said you guys, you all, except a guy like Randy is different because he's been doing it for so long. The thing that was always interesting with me is when you guys were just starting out, you and Kelly, and even Carolyn, you were never comfortable on camera. Not completely, but the second you strap the headset on and you're talking to me about what's going on for 60 feet, you guys are unbelievable. I mean, I learned so much, and there's still so much I have to learn. But I learned a great deal listening to what you know, and you all had the ability to break it down in a way that was either for the elite bowler who really wants all the dirty details of every inch of lane, and the person who's just kind of casually watching, wondering what the hell happened there. And you all did a really good job with that.
Hey, Well, I appreciate that, and I think everybody playing to their strengths. There's not none of us can do what you do, which is all the stuff, the play-by-play, and the things behind the scenes. I think is very underrated from a average viewer standpoint of getting in and out of commercials and in and out of the shows and producers in your ear and talking about what's coming up next and not breaking stride the whole way is that is a talent that not many acquire for sure.
Yeah, my father was an air traffic controller. Maybe I got it from him.
That's good.
There's a lot of that goes on there. Luckily, nobody dies if I make a mistake, except me.
Mark, how often do you hold Camp Bakes?
Well, my normal Camp Bakes, I run it in May and October. It's actually in 2 weeks. It'll be my 37th. I think it's sold out. So 37th Camp Bakes. The two-headed Camp Bakes, we're not sure when. We obviously want to have quite a few more. It's just a scheduling thing for the pros. So until they get their schedules for 2022 from the PBA Tour, we're not sure when we're going to put the next one. We would like to do one in the Midwest and one on the West Coast every year. I think that's the coaches all talk, enjoyed it. Obviously there's a need for it, I believe. So we're going to try to do 2 of those a year, one in the Midwest sometime and one in the somewhere on the West Coast. If I do the camp on the West Coast, it'll always be in Las Vegas just because everything's under one roof. The food, the lanes, the hotel, it worked out really well. But we're going to try to do 2 of those a year. My other camp is always in May and then always in October.
Very good. Very good. Well, we've managed to make it about an hour here. So I want to thank you, Mark, for coming on and talking about the two-handed camp. And we'll keep a lookout for that coming up in the future. As usual, you can go to markbakerbowling.com and look up his video lessons. So you can be literally anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world. I need to change my message on my phone, huh?
Yes.
I like that, Chris. Thanks. Yeah. Chris always looking out for me, trying to make me a few bucks.
That's all I do. I just make you money, right?
Believe me, and I appreciate it.
The table's turned over the last couple of months. So you made me
worked out good. You owe me a Mexican dinner. I got the place.
Now we're gonna pass it on generationally. Fortunately, my offspring is probably easier to deal with than I am. So
probably.
Hey.
Ooh, wait, we're still on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this live. Well, Dave, your show.
Am I supposed to take questions? It's a hot mic.
Hey, what?
Yeah.
Hey,
what? Is this thing on? Got it.
Dave, talk about your show for just a minute.
Yeah, nearly, depending on my schedule, every Monday and Friday at 12 Eastern on Facebook Live, a nooner with me. So you could say you had a nooner with me. I've been a touch lazy on getting guests, but that's going to end here soon as we get deeper into a wide variety of sports. And it can be a lot of weird stuff. I'll do 20 minutes on music if I don't feel like regurgitating the same talking points that's on every talk show, which I'm starting to try to avoid. I'm starting to think that there might be a slightly different path for this program from time to time. And unfortunately, the Flow Bowling has ended. I might have something in October with the PWBA, some of their events, the ones that aren't on CBS Sportsnet. And after that, I don't know.
All right. Well, we appreciate the impossible task they gave you doing all of that Flow Bowling remotely from your home locale. I can't imagine talking by yourself with no feedback. It literally an impossible job. I hate the fact that they put you in that position, and hopefully that changes in the future. We certainly liked you much more when you were on site.
So did I.
There with you and fill in some space, but it's a very cool thing. We will look at a Thursday show and see how that plays out. I'll check in with my co-host here and see what his schedule looks like, but we'll see about doing that. Anything else you'd like to bring up or thank Mark?
I just want to thank you guys for letting me be on there. And Dave, Chris is right. I watched a lot of it, watching Chris bowl the last couple events on the PBA 50, the ones I watched. When I talked to my wife about it, he's doing both sides of the job. That's got to be hard. He has nobody to play it off of. So telling a joke to yourself is pretty tricky. And you got to play the straight guy, and you got to have the punchline. That's a little hard to set that up to be entertaining. So we thought you did a great job. It was I'd be really hard to do it. It was really fun to, your the part that I like, I'm an up guy. I'm pretty wound tight. So I just like the enthusiasm you bring to it, because, at times bowling can get a little boring. I mean, there's the fans, there's not a full house of fans going crazy. Yeah. The only energy is coming from you, the announcer. So I thought you did a good job on the energy to keep it going. Obviously we had, watching Chris and Tom go at each other every week was pretty cool to watch, but you did a great job. Very good job.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I have no idea if that's going to be a permanent solution or if just a financial one. I know that, money entered into it. I think the hardest part, honestly, is not knowing what was going on regarding equipment and lane changes, that I could get that intel directly from guys, because everybody's always been so nice to me and so cooperative. And so I'm kind of in the dark. The other hard part is if the dog barks or if the cats need to be fed. Since my wife has a real job, most of those Tuesday mornings, I'm sitting there literally by myself, other than wondering if I should let the dog in or not, because she's scratching at the door. But thank you both. How much I appreciate the sport, and hopefully I can continue to do it, whether it's in the den or better yet in the bowling centers.
Excellent.
Stu actually is joining us from Aruba briefly, so it's still going. And Alan Ryan says you've been replaced. Just in case Stu missed it, we'll make sure we put on Alan's previous comment, which I'm sure Stu will consider the source. But good show, fellas. Stu obviously brings nothing to these. And we have a request that Coach Bakes needs to do his commercial live.
What commercial?
How good are you?
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Mark Baker. If you'd like to take a virtual lesson and work on your game, having a problem with timing, balance, hitting your target, go to markbakerbowling.com, click on virtual lessons, follow all the steps, and I'll talk to you real soon on video. Thank you. How was that?
Well, except you missed the tagline.
markbakerbowling.com. And please keep watching Beef and Barnzy.
You can be anywhere in the world.
Yes, you can be anywhere in the world. Here's a map. I didn't know I was going to do that wrong. Here's a map of the world. Please help me put more pins in my map so my son can pass geography. Thank you.
Well, here's an interesting part. Alan, rather see Barnes upload it to YouTube.
Oh, that's not hard. I used to do that.
Okay, well.
If I can do it, you can do it. Trust me. And if not, ask Ryan. He'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Dave, tell us about your podcast, and then we'll sign off.
Get out. We'll just remind you, Monday and Friday, noon Eastern. The Nooner and Dave Lamont on Facebook Live. I certainly owe Chris a visit to pop by. When do you go? What's next, right? Weber?
Bowl Regional this weekend. Then we have Weber Cup here in a couple of weeks.
Okay. After you get back, we'll do something in October. But yeah, again, thank you, Chris, for asking. I've loved shooting the breeze with you in any circumstance, better face to face, but this will do for now.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for coming on. Once again, know our people in the chat and people are watching this. And when you get a chance, please support the sponsors that support us: Storm, Rotogrip, Niner Global, Vice, Coolwick, 3G Shoes, Bowler's Mark, Mark Baker Bowling, Fire Lake Bowling Center, Platinum Ford, and Lightning Strikes. For Dave Lamont and Mark Baker, thanks for joining us today. Stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.